I think the line is too high, but I certainly understand that if any team, Texas will not blow out Ohio State, but there is the possibility that Ohio State could maybe blow out Texas. Texas will have to bring it for 4 quarters. That is something the Longhorns have not done all year long. Ohio State is beatable. We know that. But they are also playing just as well as they played all year long.
That's my question, is that we see this all the time in sports where there's a team that's chugging along, say they're undefeated, or they just have looked unbeatable, and they've played great games and brought their A game every single game. But what happens if they have a bad game? Because you've got to remember, these are still college kids, and sometimes they can be inconsistent. And then on the flip side, Jenks, when's the last time we saw like a complete game from Texas? Because I feel like it's been a lot of Texas playing like one good half of football. Because that's my question. If Texas plays their best game of the year, can it beat Ohio State's best game of the year?
I think so. I do. I think it'll be close. I think it'll come down to it will be like we saw last night, where it will be a critical turnover that will end up being the difference in the game, and which is generally happens in most football games, right? So it's not exactly stunning analysis, but particularly when you're talking about teams that are so evenly matched, if they're playing at their potential. Texas is the one team remaining that can match Ohio State talent-wise. Now, the Buckeyes are the most talented team in the country. Remember, before the season, Ohio State was the favorite to win the national title. So now they're playing like the team that early in the season they were supposed to be, despite that hiccup again against the Wolverines. But I think the key for Texas, and there's a lot of different matchups that you want to watch in this game, but I think the key for Texas, if they want to win this game, is their defensive line with Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, and particularly Colin Simmons. Watch out for Colin Simmons on the edge. They'll move him around a little bit. Fantastic 5-star freshman. They have got to make Will Howard uncomfortable. You can talk about guarding Jeremiah Smith and that incredible offense. I mean, Ohio State can beat you in so many different ways. But if you pressure Will Howard, force him to make a mistake. Otherwise, Egbuka and Smith will burn you all day long. If you give Will Howard time, it's over. So the Texas defensive front has to make him uncomfortable and force him into making a mistake or two, because Will Howard will do that. We've seen that. Now, if he has a clean pocket, it's over. But if he doesn't, and he's forced to make a throw where there's guys in his face, especially when you're talking about one of the best secondaries in college football, then you can start to hang with Ohio State because they're just not dropping bombs on you or handing it off to Travion Henderson. This is a really good Buckeyes team, but I think getting to Will Howard is the one key. It's the one thing Texas must do.
Yeah, and it feels to me there's not that many great secondaries in college football. So you see these quarterbacks who play these teams that are just not good in this area when it comes to defense. But we saw it last night. Look at Drew Aller throwing into triple coverage against a really good Notre Dame secondary, and it cost him. So maybe that's the case tonight for Texas and Ohio State, because obviously the quarterback still has to get those elite receivers the football. And Will Howard is somebody who I feel like the opinions have been kind of skewed. Like, there's been a lot of people who have been real hesitant to jump on the Will Howard bandwagon. So I think there's still maybe some questions there. And the other question I have for Ohio State is, okay, are we just going to forget about the Michigan game where they were absolutely bullied up front, where they gave up almost 200 yards on the ground to Michigan, who's not even good this year? I understand it's a big physical team and that's a rivalry matchup, but are we just going to throw this game away? Because we've had, 2 games for Ohio State and everybody just has a short memory?
I think that's a really good point. And Texas's strength is its offensive line. They have the best offensive line or a lineman in the country in Kelvin Banks Jr. on that left side. He's going to be a top 5 draft pick in the NFL. And they also get Cam Williams back. And Cam Williams is going to be huge for Texas because they've had Trevor Gooseby filling in. And Trevor is a big guy, massive guy, but he's not quite on the Cam Williams level. Cam Williams is a brawler. Like, he gets to get in there and be nasty. And that's what Texas needs. They need to be nasty up front, open up some running lanes, which is going to be difficult because the Ohio State defense and Jim Dowling and what he does is very creative. And they really switched what they do. Ohio State was pretty good on defense, and then they got exceptional because they started rotating their defensive linemen into the game late in the season, keeping those guys fresher, and they're very deceptive at the point of attack. I mean, they switch things up at the last second. They show one look, move into another. You have Caleb Downs coming from the safety position. He'll just streak in and help defend the run because he's just so good. He can do it all. The more I talk about Ohio State, then the more I talk myself out of Texas because they're so talented. But if Texas can win in the trenches, if they can force Will Howard to make mistakes, and they can open up lanes offensively and protect Quinn Ewers, Texas can keep this close and maybe pull off an upset.
Right, because we're talking about a 6-point spread here. It's not a field goal. It is 6 points, which I think Texas can keep it within striking distance. Okay, so we haven't talked about the total yet. And I think I go kind of back and forth because we talk about how good these defenses are, 2 top 10 defenses, and especially when you talk about Texas, who's elite against the pass. But I feel like there's more offensive weaponry in this game than we saw last night. Because obviously we both liked the under last night. It didn't hit, but still for most of the game, it was very much a defensive struggle. I think a lot of it was just the number was really low. But we get a 53.5 in this one. And again, I go back and forth because I can totally see Ohio State's weapons, being a cheat code against any defense. But at the same time, these are 2 really solid defenses. So, Jenks, do you have a feeling on a total here?
I would lean to the under, probably, is where I would go. Or maybe I'll just say what that guy said in the Instagram comments yesterday. No, I like the over. The energy. It's the energy. Nah, it's just the over because the energy of both of these teams. The energy will be high. Yes, it's a college football playoff semifinal game. I like the under when you're talking about 2 top 10 defenses, 2 top 5 defenses, really. And I know I used part of this as my handicap yesterday. But, yes, you have a lot of offensive weaponry on the field. And, yeah, it could absolutely break open. But ultimately, I see a game where I don't think Texas wants to get into a shootout with Ohio State. And normally – that would be reversed. Like, you don't want to get into a shootout with Texas because eventually Quinn Ewers will just away. He's like the Undertaker. Like, he'll just be dead for a quarter, and then he'll be like, well, all right, it's time to play football now. It's time to win the game. I mean, he did that against Arizona State. Where, like, for a quarter and a half, he threw an interception. He was self-sacking. Texas couldn't do anything. And then late in the fourth and overtime, he was absolute nails. So I think that if you're looking at a total, I would lean under. I like Texas plus 6 actually more than I like the under in this game. I think the defenses will come to play, and that if you're Texas at least, you've got to be able to make Ohio State beat you in a different way than letting Jeremiah Smith get loose.
I think the under makes me nervous in this one simply because I think there's a lot of explosive play potential. Because in college football, that's what it's about. Because you can have a game that's really controlled by the run game, but a couple explosive plays, and there goes the over. So I think if I was playing a total in this one, we would go back to the first half under. We saw it last night where sometimes the game plan is really good on the defensive side of things, and then the coaches make adjustments. But I will say the sabotage factor is I think we have better offensive-minded head coaches, most namely Sark. So I don't know, Jenks.
Come on,
maybe it's
Sark.
just Texas plus 6.
One time. Just one time. Just go into your bag tonight. I need to see it.